Day 16, almost 1,500 miles completed, and this is an absolute brute. Why do they do it after the rest day?
Well, that's always the case. Almeria is the starting point right on the Mediterranean. 2 first category climbs before the riders go up to the observation post at the top of Cala Alto. And by the way, the last first category climb is the same mountain but done in a slightly different direction.
And going to a higher point as well. Well, amongst the non-starters, there were quite a few today. One of them, Alessandro Bertacchi, is out now and on his way back home to Italy. That's where we're going to, the observatory here. And that might well see the riders who intend to be on the podium in Madrid finish together. This is the first time up then on the Alta de Cala, taking us to the 88-kilometre point, and it's really been a big dice today between Egoi Martínez and Pietro Cauchioli, fighting it out now for the King of the Mountains competition, and so far Cauchioli is doing just about enough to keep that orange jersey on his shoulders.
Well, this is the leading group of riders that got clear after about 40 kilometres of racing, built themselves an advantage at one stage of around about 7.5 minutes, but I think we may well very shortly, Phil, get a chance to get a more accurate time check. There is the orange jersey of leader of the King of the Mountains classification on the shoulders of Cauchioli, and as we go over the top here, the clock starts for the main field behind.
Martínez also riding very well again today for Discovery. Double-pronged attack here, chance of getting into the lead in the King of the Mountains, and also, of course, consolidating what is now a good lead in the team championship as well. There's the finish, but we're not going quite up that way just yet. But we'll be there for the finish of the stage when we get through the 145-kilometre point.
Well, Kurt Adler-Arvidsson was the CSC rider towards the back end of this group. Most of the big teams managed to get themselves represented, and the time gap at the top of the Cala Alto over the main field, 4 minutes and 57 seconds.
Yes, so this might well be one of those days when the leaders neutralise all the advantages and allow the in-fight to get on for the King of the Mountains. That'll be the plan. There's Valverde there pulling on. Cape for the cold descent down. In that leading group, by the way, is Oscar Pereiro, who's still waiting to hear if he's won this year's Tour de France or not. Quite a big time gap, indicating, I think, that the riders who will eventually fight out final honours are all in this pack.
Yeah, nobody too worried, I think, about the presence of any of the riders in that leading group of breakaway riders, because they realise none of them are really very important in the overall classification. Australian national champion just slipping back through there.
Well, at least, if you think back over the near 2 and there's been a crash here. This was on the way down.
This is Hernandez from Relax, Fuenlabrada, and in fact you can see what's happened here, Phil, is his front tyre has actually popped off, and it's actually a clincher type tyre, not a stuck-on tubular tyre, and that must have been because of the heat on the descent, and that does not look very comfortable.
I think he rammed into the barrier. I don't know if they'll show us the slow-motion shot, but I think he rammed into the... Oh, here we go, we're going to see it, as he must be midway up the centre of the field here. I may not be able to see it too clearly. But there he is. Yes, he's hit the barrier on the far left of the road, and that's a very painful fall for Hernandez. I don't think he's going to continue here.
Oh, he looks in absolute agony, this man. And the doctor very quickly on hand. These doctors do a magnificent job in all of these bike races around the world, getting out of the car as quickly as possible to look after their riders. That's Suarez Cuevas there, by the way, the team manager of Relax Fuenlabrada, looking a lot larger than he was when he was a professional racing cyclist. It's about the same time as I was in the 1980s.
Well, there's the ascent now, and this is the one that counts up the different way to the team finishing line up on the top, and now the weather has changed here. The cloud has come in and it is quite damp, but it is the sort of weather that riders do like, and again we're being treated here by attack from Astana.
Well, they're all over the front of this race at 8 kilometres to go. They really are trying to sort something out, to set something up for their man Alexander Vinokourov and, of course, Andrei Kashaykin, who are well up in the overall classification. I think this is Jose Antonio Rodbondo, who was in the leading breakaway. He may well be the final survivor of that leading breakaway, with inside of 8 kilometres to go now. And the weather, Phil, has finally turned nasty.
Now, what I was about to say before we saw the crash of Hernandez was what a rain-free tour we'd have, but it's changed as we've returned now to the big climb. And it's also gone quite cold up here as well. and very dark, so this is very ice-cold rain. It is indeed Redondo, this, Jose Antonio from Astana. They are riding on such a high at the moment with the results they've been getting. 3-stage wins, remember, so far, and a real chance now putting Vinokourov or Kashaykin into the podium finishes in Madrid. They've got to get rid of Valverde somehow, and at the moment that is not happening, because there's Alejandro in this group down there, and a lot of Discovery riders with them as well. Tommy Danielson, for example, has been getting better and better every day in the mountains.
Well, it looks like it's Team CSC deciding to try and whip up the pace. They want to put a little bit of time, if they can, between Carlos Sastre and Alejandro Valverde. It looks to me now as if Redondo is suffering a fraction here. He's got still a fair advantage over the front end of that group, but you know, they will start to whip it up, because every time you get a mountaintop finish like this, it's a chance to try and put the leaders in difficulty. There's the move now coming from Carlos Sastre, but very easily covered by the golden jersey there, and you can see Valverde straight up to the front.
Well, what was a routine day has now turned into quite a nasty finish here, and a big slug up to this all-category climb. All the riders except Redondo have been caught and dropped. Their 5-minute advantage has been wiped out, as we're now seeing Sastre do the hard work.
Followed there by the overall leader. Then you can see Sammy Sanchez, then Alexander Vinokourov riding a lot better. But what I haven't seen actually is Andrei Kashaykin. Now he could see himself losing his high place in the overall classification, because he seems to have missed out.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for that, because I haven't seen him either. Vinokourov is having another good day. He's trying to work out how on earth he can handle Valverde, and Valverde possibly the other way around here. But Valverde, the race leader now for so long, and that's Vinokourov again, and no reaction from Valverde. Now he's gambling here, because it's still a long way up to the summit, and Valverde is trying to pick up the tempo.
Well, he's lifting up the tempo. He's not responding to that attack. You know, that is the kind of rider that Alexander Vinokourov is. He doesn't take anything out of the handbook of tactics. He just feels good and says, right, mate, I'm going for it now. And he's certainly gone for that one. But you can see the pressure that Alejandro Valverde is putting on, and Carlos Sastre is having a hard time coming up to him.
And the weather's having a hard time with our pictures. We'll hang on there, though, because Valverde here is going to have to do something about this. These are desperate moments, and it seems to me, Paul, that it's either Vinokourov or Valverde for the win now. They are riding head-to-head these past few days. Sastre's in for the ride, but I don't think he's got the legs to put forth the attack.
He's just holding on to try and keep himself as close as possible to a podium position. That's Sammy Sanchez once again. He's also riding a lot better in this final week of the Vuelta a España now, starting to get himself a little bit of form. Very similar to the form that he had in the early part of the season.
The other rider with him is Igor Anton, so Euskaltel have got two cards here, and I think that's Anton who's just put in the attack.
Little good move by him, and he may well get a chance to get a fraction of freedom here, Phil. We're going a little bit further up the road. These are riders from that early breakaway who are still surviving. That's Egoi Martínez over on the right-hand side. Once again, he was in the long breakaway here this afternoon, but today it was a slightly different order for him, because what he was looking for were points in the King of the Mountains classification.
Yes, it is Anton briefly in that front shot, but I have to say the weather now quite atrocious here. We had clear skies around the observatory first time up. Now this different approach, and they're getting up to the cloud line. Anton trying to get clear of the field. There'll be no reaction from Samuel Sanchez at least, and it doesn't look as though Valverde has an awful lot of firepower there either.
Well, he has to ride sensibly, Phil, in the final week. It's a very difficult final week of the Vuelta a España, and as far as I'm concerned, for him, he's only got to watch a couple of riders, and it seems, as you were saying, the right man for him to watch now is Alexander Vinokourov, who, after a very dodgy start to the Vuelta, is now getting better. But what about this move by Sastre?
You see, commentators don't know everything. I really thought Sastre was along for the ride and was pretty much finished, but there he goes. He's lifted up. He may have sensed, that Valverde doesn't seem quite as sharp here. They've managed to wind back in Valverde. You're right, Kashaykin has gone and losing time. There's Valverde, and here comes another attack. And again, it is not Sanchez who's left behind. It is this rider, Igor Anton. He's never won a race.
Well, that's Egoi Martínez going backwards. That's a good move by the Euskaltel rider, because he's probably banking on the fact that maybe, because I'm not one of the big hitters, these guys are not going to chase me. They can fight it amongst themselves, because they're looking for a different game. They're looking for time in the overall classification. But Sammy Sanchez has now gone.
Well, Sanchez now, I don't know why he's doing that to cause a reaction to his own teammate, quite frankly, but he's tried and he's failed. A little bit of tempo picking up there by Vinokourov, looks over on his shoulder, being heavily marked now by Valverde, who I don't think will want him to even gain 2 meters on him, because he's not really reacting quick enough. And visibility is collapsing on us right now. There's Valverde.
Well, I'll tell you what, our friends at Radio Televisión España are doing an excellent job in just keeping the pictures in these weather conditions this afternoon. Look at that face there on Carlos Sastre. Much more concentrated, the face on Alejandro Valverde. He's probably looking down that long tunnel vision to see if he can see Madrid on the horizon, because that's what he's looking for. That's what he wants. He wants to get there next Sunday.
But you know, you look at this situation here, and these riders, to me, appear to be just below the red zone, all of them. Nobody looking very good right now. It's also very cold, and that might favour the Kazakh rider. He likes to go in when it gets rough. There's Martínez hanging in now a little bit with them.
Tommy Danielson, number 74, also, as you said, riding a lot better in the latter part of this race. He'd hoped to be the team leader for Team Discovery Channel. Lost a little bit of time in the first week of racing, but now seems to be improving down towards the end of the race.
Sanchez looking across to see his teammate making steady progress, Igor Anton. A couple of other riders with him. I'd like to know who they are. Can't remember who's left up the road now.
Well, they're all survivors of that early breakaway, coming back slowly but surely. I didn't quite see who that was. It was one of the riders from Euskaltel Euskadi, I think, if I can see through the mist.
Well, I haven't seen Redondo come back, so he must be up there somewhere. Here we go, 5 kilometres to go now. 3 riders making steady progress. That is Redondo, actually, on the left of our picture, as they start to come up to this, what a lonely picture that is of these 3 bike riders now.
Well, they are surviving, and they do know that there's a battle royale taking place behind them. Look at Danielson now moving up right onto the wheel of Alejandro Valverde. Vinokourov, I think, very happy just to sit there and allow the others to make the pacemaking. It is Anton and Redondo at 21 seconds ahead of the group of the overall leader of the race, Valverde. That's not a bad little move.
No, it isn't. And this, as we get round the mountain, visibility getting a little bit clear, and there are only 2 of them now. Redondo's doing pretty well here because he's been out front an awful long time, and he's still managing to hang on here to a man who's never won a bike race since he turned professional back in 2005.
And just looking back, there is another rider halfway across the gap, and I wasn't quite sure who that was, but he was with these riders, so he's another rider, I think, from that early breakaway who has been left behind and shortly will get pulled into the group by Valverde.
And then things will make sense, because there's 2 riders out front, and then the men that matter are locked together here with first, second and third overall, and he's gone again, and watch out, because now Vinokourov has put in a very serious attack. Good reaction though from Valverde, and I think he might get onto him.
Well, this time Valverde wasn't going to just try and lift the tempo. There's the rider, the Euskaltel rider, going backwards. He was one of the early morning breakaways. Quick move there by Alejandro Valverde. Didn't want Vinokourov to get the advantage, but Vinokourov now, with a move like this, Phil, could be looking at a podium position in Madrid.
Well, yes, because he could shake off that 4th place deficit. Sastre has not reacted whatsoever and has lost ground here. He only wants a few seconds advantage.
Redondo has stopped. He's heard what has happened. This is the man from Astana, knew exactly what was happening with his team lead and said, right, I haven't got that much left, but what I've got I'm going to give to you.
Well, let's see if he's got anything left at all now to lift the pace and give Vinokourov a little break here, because Valverde made a tremendous sprint to catch on. Only 4 kilometres left to go. Redondo will give away his last few percent of energy now, and he's accelerating as well. And if he can just give Vinokourov a few kilometres, even 1 kilometre of rest, he might have some more power to go again.
You know, you can be absolutely flat on the bike, but all of a sudden, when you know your team leader needs you, you can find something, especially in a situation like this, on a special day when you know it can mean the difference between losing and winning a race like the Vuelta a España. And this acceleration has actually brought us back now to Anton.
Yes, and what terrific riding. And Redondo, Anton, look, he took a double take there, seeing goodness that guy I thought had just dropped, and he's now brought back these 2 top riders in the Vuelta, and that's what they could be by the end of this day if the gap's open, because Kashin's disappeared today. And hats off to Redondo, and in fact the Kazakh rider Vinokourov, I think, is even saying something to him at the moment. 1st, 4th, 20th and 100th Redondo, and now he's launched him, and that was his job. Now what can Vinokourov has gone. Valverde, he's under pressure, but he's hanging in there.
He's just sitting there looking. He knows this man wants to try and put time gaps between him and the other riders in front of him in the overall classification. Valverde on the defensive. All he's got to do is watch. He doesn't really have to do anything in a situation like this. Vinokourov is looking at the time of this man, Carlos Sastre. I think he's looking to try and move himself up. He started the day in 4th place overall, Phil. If he can do a fine ride this afternoon, he could see himself move up to 3rd or even 2nd, because we don't know where Kashakin is.
Well, I'm not sure, but Valverde said something then to Vinokourov. Took a great look at him, and coming up on the other side is Igor Anton. I don't think they'll react for him. No reaction. Why should there be? The guy's not going to threaten them overall. And Vinokourov sitting up there looking straight into the eyes of the golden jersey of the Vuelta. This man could take full advantage of this. Oh, he's seen the gap and he's gritted his teeth. Igor Anton, he's only just 23 years of age in March. Turned pro last year when he was 21 3/4.
I don't think this man has ever won a race in his career so far. He's a very young rider. He's taken advantage here of this rivalry between Valverde and Vinokourov. I don't think Vinokourov wants to drag Valverde to the finish because he realises he is the man who's got the faster finish, and he's the man, if it's a win, it's another 20 seconds time bonus. But this slowing down has allowed the return of Sammy Sanchez and Carlos Sastre.
Well, you know, it's another huge day in the mountains tomorrow. This tour is so tough now that these guys may decide to call it a truce and ride to the finish together now, because they've both tried, and Valverde really spent his whole day on the defensive. Just 3 kilometres left to go. Sastre's climbed himself back into the action. He did well to do that, so which means, though, there has been a stepping off of the gas pedal, and this rider, I think, is heading for his first ever victory.
Well, he's got a 10-second advantage over some pretty serious riders. Now, if Alexander Vinokourov puts in another blistering attack like that one, he can wipe 10 seconds away very easily indeed. But this young man, Igor Anton, looks pretty comfortable now. Sammy Sanchez on the far side, he'll try and slow it down as much as possible. And you can see coming back of this, looks like Redondo is coming back again. He'll go straight to the front to help out his leader. Look at that.
There he is. Oh, fantastic. 100th overall, but a job to do, and that's all that matters. Sanchez pedals by as well. The other two are content to watch each other.
And look at how easy Tommy Danielson is. He was dropped off the back a fraction there, but he's now climbing very nicely indeed. And look at that, he's gone by everybody.
Taking advantage. He knows now there's an in-battle between those two, and he's trying to take advantage and get a good result on the day rather than climb up. Well, he's dancing on the pedals, and right behind him is Sanchez. Vinokourov quickly taken order. Valverde has come. Meanwhile, about 10 seconds. Oh, forget that. Make it 24 up the road. Anton is pedalling nicely towards victory.
He's concentrating now, just trying to find a rhythm, trying to keep those gears ticking over. He'll look at his race computer to see how far it is exactly to go to the finish. He will have studied the race Bible. He knows now what the final kilometre or so are going to look like. He will have studied the gradients. He'll know whether or not he's going to go down to the finish or up to the finish line, and just try and consolidate on this advantage as much as possible. The way these guys are riding, Phil, they've actually thrown the stage away this afternoon. Sammy Sanchez is not going to make a move at all on the right-hand side in the orange, because he's the teammate of Igor Anton, and he wants his man to go away with the win.
And you can't blame him. We're only 2 days away. These are the vicious days in the mountains now. 2 days away from La Pandera. And that is the brute which these riders will fear most of all. There's plenty of time to put matters to rights between those two, Valverde and Vinokourov. And Khashoggi now seems to be dropping out of this race. There's a counter-attack from Tom Danielson. He's picked up the revs. He really has got stronger and stronger, and a chance to improve his overall position here.
Well, he's looking to try and get himself a little bit of individual glory as well, but they're not giving him too much advantage here. It looks as if it's Redondo come to the front for Astana and Vinokourov to try and pull back Tommy Danielson. But what this will do, it will damage the advantage of Igor Anton, and then we could set up to another counter move by Alexander Vinokourov.
Well, we're making our final ascent now. You saw the change of direction off the highway. Well, it's not really a highway, but you know what I mean. As now Danielson tries desperately here to reach Igor Anton. At the same time, the others, I think it's 2 kilometres, that banner. There's the gap, 34 seconds to Tommy Danielson, so about 38 seconds to the group containing the yellow jersey.
Well, Danielson looking comfortable on his machine here, trying to eat into the advantage of this man. He really does look very comfortable, Tommy D. But this is the lone leader, Igor Anton. He's stamping on those pedals now, trying to find every last little bit of force. And it looks like Tommy Danielson has paid for that, because now Alexander Vinokourov goes again.
And he stamped on those pedals now. Has he hurt Valverde, who's done nothing but defend his position on the mountain today? He hasn't tried to attack Vinokourov, who hasn't tried to drop him, I don't think, more than about, 4 times today?
He's had a go. This man will always have a go. Right the way to Madrid, I would think he's going to have a go. And I'm sure he's starting to get a lot stronger in the latter part of this race. Carlos Sastre, once again, hanging in there, just hoping to keep himself on the podium. And Sammy Sanchez is the man now in a little bit of difficulty in the orange, just a little bit further back, about 50 metres.
Well, suffering is the optional word there for the rider on the right, but he's hung in, and Carlos Sastre is a real fighter, and they haven't got rid of him. When they did, he came back. As far as Anton is concerned, victory is but around the corner here. His first ever victory as a pro, and he's ridden like a real champion today as he drives on through the mist and occasional rain here, and it's not so hot either. And there's another attack from Vinokourov. Who's going this time? Sastre just gets out and kicks in too. Vinokourov is trying to get rid of Valverde, but he cannot break the elastic. These guys will not let him go.
They will not let him go at all. You can see the face, you can look into the eyes of Alexander Vinokourov, and it reads pain and agony, but I still want to crack you. I still want to see if I can get rid of everybody here. I want to win the stage, but I also want to move up to a podium position in Madrid. And that's amazing when you think in the first week of this race he was well outside the top 20.
Well, he's steadily come back in, but I wonder if that original handicap of 2 minutes for Vinokourov will be just that bit too much to stop him winning this race, because he's certainly having a go. Kashikin has lost time now, so Vinokourov is on the podium when he gets to Madrid if he can hang in there. He is up to 3rd place overall. Valverde has done everything right so far, and now he's trying to put the frighteners on Vinokourov and ride at the front.
Well, he's setting his tempo now. That's the best way to discourage any former attacks, although you do open yourself up to the surprise of being attacked from behind and not being able to respond that quickly. But the thing about Alejandro Valverde is he has the ability to change his tempo and cadence. He can climb and he can sprint.
Oh, boy, this man, is he going to make it? He's really hurting now. But he's determined, he's dreaming of a first ever win, and what a win it would be for his Basque professional team in Spain. 38 seconds. He's still building at the moment, because after those brief accelerations they slow down quite drastically and the gaps open again.
Well, that's what goes to his advantage, really. The fact is that they're not really organising their chase. They accelerate and slow down, and that basically takes down their overall average speed, and that is the good thing for this man, because he can grapple a couple more seconds each time. At 1 kilometre to go, he will get the clock starting once again, and if he's got 30 or 40 seconds here, Phil, they're not going to see him again.
Absolutely not. There was that move that we saw before. That was how the attack was made, I think. It's not Sanchez, is it?
No, that's Sanchez. This is the group behind. I think they just wanted to show how dangerous it was with somebody riding and walking in front of the riders.
Well, the crowd are probably trying to keep warm here now. These boys are almost slowed to a standstill, and so the rider up front is going to be pulling away. Sanchez, of course, doing a great job of backing them off. But he might be setting up another attack here from either Valverde or Alexander Vinokourov. I don't think there'll be an attack from Sastre, but it might come from Tom Danielson. 37 seconds and 1 kilometre to go. Well, that's a winner.
That's pretty fine, and I hope you noticed just exactly what Sammy Sanchez was doing. He was setting a false tempo on the front, and that was to offer a little bit of pacemaking to the other guys, but not a pace as fast as his own teammate, and that would be his advantage. Look at him looking over his shoulders. He's worried. He knows he's got a possible winning margin, but he won't feel that he can win this until he starts to get inside the final barriers.
This is going to be his greatest moment here. One sometimes questions the need for barriers at the top of a mountain's finish, because there's not many people up here today. But this rider is riding to glory on the television screens around the world, and Igor Anton, who's never won a bike race, he's been a pro for 2 full seasons now, is about to get a stage win in the Vuelta España. Richly deserved. He's ridden very, very well, taking full advantage of his lowly position in the overall classification.
500 metres to go, and he's still holding on to around about a half-minute advantage. These guys now, all they're thinking about is setting themselves up for the sprint victory, and now as he gets closer to the finish, you can see the smile starting to appear on the lips there of Igor Anton. He knows he's got it.
Be a long celebration, this, about 250 metres, I think, because time is of no importance to this rider, but the victory certainly is. And that's it. Yes, smiles now, the pain of the day all behind him, but there's 2 more days of severe pain to come in the mountains, so save a little bit. But as he comes to the line now, this is his moment in the Tour of Spain, and he gets another win for the Euskaltel team.
Well, he's pretty happy with that. 4.5 hours in the saddle, but look at the average speed on the day, only 32 kilometres an hour.
Sastra's been distanced again there. He's going to lose seconds here. All to the effort of Sanchez, trying to make it a 1-2. Remember, there's bonuses. Very important here for Valverde and Vinokourov. And Valverde's gone round Sanchez, so they're both going to get bonuses. But I think Valverde will nudge a little bit on him, and that's a big result psychologically for him. And Sanchez, unlucky fourth.
Just being tailed off again, losing a few more seconds. You just caught sight of Carlos Sastre. This is Manuel Beltran coming up to the line. He too is keeping himself up in the top 10 in the overall classification.
Well, some very good riding again being done by the riders on Discovery. Uncontestable. I think they'll lead now in the team race if things don't go wrong. They've got 4 good riders out there this year, matching with the best. And now the riders are going to continue to come in. We're looking at quite big time checks here as they race down towards the line. This is Redondo, I think. Well, what a great ride he's done. He's racing for 8th place, but I think he'll have to settle for 9th at 50 metres because the rider just ahead of him, Luis Perez, is going to take that 8th place.
And also just moving up there as well, the Stein de Volder is coming up in alongside Egoi Martínez, who's done a pretty impressive ride too.
And that's again giving us a day when Discovery get their 3 men over the line first. In fact, they've got 4 men over the line already.
Yeah, I didn't see Tommy Danielson coming in 6th place.
And the Astana team are also riding well because they've got 3 riders in the mix for the team too. Anyway, let's have a look at the result. 23 seconds the final margin, same time between Valverde and Vinokourov. Sanchez in the mix and Sastre in 5th place. Valverde will have increased his overall lead tonight on the eve of another tough day in the mountains. Tommy Danielson into 6th place, Beltran into 7th and Redondo into 9th after a great piece of riding today, and De Volder continues to ride very, very well indeed. First win, that is how you do it when you get your flowers.
Well, that was a very nice touch. A great win by this young man. Again, a good rider, I think, for Euskaltel-Euskadi for the future, and certainly a very courageous ride, taking advantage of the infighting of the top men.
But look at that, Paul. Vinokourov sits now in 2nd place, but the gap is still there. That time lost on stage 5, he's still feeling it. A minute 42, same time as Carlos Sastre. Kashikin goes down to 4th place. The Discovery boys are riding well. Tommy Danielson into 10th now. He really thought he was out of the hunt after stage 5 and he's climbing his way back in. But Alejandro Valverde lives to fight another day as he continues in the golden jersey. 142 riders survive with 5 days to go in the Vuelta España, and we stay in the mountains today as we head to Granada. And this is only around about 100 miles, but they'll know they've ridden it when they get to the finish.
Leaving the Mediterranean behind them, the town of Adra, 166 kilometres down into the town of Granada. The very difficult climb down towards the end, the first category climb, is ideally suited to shake up the main field, but shouldn't really cause that much of a problem for the top men in the overall classification.
And if thoughts were that the big boys would take it easy over the first climb of the day, in fact they haven't done so. There's been an attack, they've been caught, and now they're away again here. And this is Tom Danielson, who's riding better and better every day in this race. He's becoming the strong man of the squad.
Well, over the first big climb of the day, Egoi Martínez got himself a lot of points there. It was a first category climb, and that, I think, Phil, is going to take him pretty close to the overall lead, taking that away from Pietro Cauchioli. That's a battle they've had for the last few days.
Well, Cauchioli, who was with him, he went over in 2nd place, but lost a further 4 points, and I think you're right. Cauchioli's going to have to do something special now to hold off the leader there.
There's a plan here, Phil. Team CSC are all over the front of the main field. Carlos Sastre there in 2nd place, out of the white jersey as leader of the combine classification. That's moved across to Alexander Vinokourov, who's just a little bit further back in 3rd or 4th place. But these guys here, this is a long way to go from the top of this climb. It's around about 40 kilometres down into the finishing town of Granada, but I think they want to see if they can put some pressure onto that man there in the golden jersey.
Well, tomorrow, remember, we finish on La Pantera, and that's a real brute. That is the highlight for those who are watching the Vuelta a España tomorrow. But this is a 12% averaging out drag here, and the CSC are trying to get Carlos Sastre into the thick of it. But Vinokourov riding pretty cool, and his eternal shadow right behind him, Valverde.
Well, this has sorted out the group of fraction because, you know, we're down to probably around about 45 or 50 riders in this group, but most of the big names are pretty much present. I wouldn't have expected to see a move come like this from CRC on this climb. I would have certainly have expected them to wait until tomorrow and the mountaintop finish at La Pandera, which is a beast.
Well, I'm suspecting that's Gomez Marchante. We haven't seen him for a while, but he's moved up onto the left of our... No, it's not, it's Pipoli who's moved up to the left of our picture. And now is he planning something here, building up tempo?
Well, this is not really the sort of climb for Leonardo Pipoli, but he may well be just trying to throw something into the mix, and they've seen the acceleration of this young climber, 48 kilograms, used to ride for the Bonesto team for many years, but now moved across to Saunier Duval, looking over his shoulder. There is Andrei Kashaykin in the pale turquoise jersey of the national champion of Kazakhstan, but this is certainly hurting a lot of legs. Well, it was a group of 50 riders, Phil, but it certainly isn't anymore.
Well, Leonardo Pipoli, I wouldn't call him a young rider, Paul, at 34, but I think he meant a light rider.
He did, yeah.
But he got 2 stage wins in the Giro this year, and he has his moments. And this field now, again, is cracking up under the pressure. And Astana has decided to go again. The man that lost the time yesterday, Kashaykin, is out to get it back.
He wants to get himself back onto the podium if he can. They were trying to rattle the cage of this man, but today he's saying, I just had a bad day yesterday. Today you will see a new Andrei Kashaykin. And in fact, it's putting a little bit of pressure, Phil, here onto the shoulders of Alexander Valverde. Looks across at Vinokourov, looks across at Carlos Sastre.
Well, they are the men who have made this race, but I'm not sure they can do anything about each other at the moment.
This is Luis Perez. He's joined Pipoli. But you can see these riders are being given a little bit of freedom here on this climb. I'm really quite surprised to see the pressure coming on this climb, which, although it's a first category, it didn't really look all that hard to me. It's a long climb with not really steep gradients, but Andrei Kashaykin wants to try and use this as a launch pad to try and get himself clear. But if they just allow him to go over the top with a 30 or 40 second advantage, they can get themselves organised on the descent, because it's a very long run-in to Granada.
This to me seems an Astana plan here, because he's escorting the yellow jersey there of Valverde, and Vinokourov sat right there, and he's put a man up front who eventually they're going to have to react to, because he's only 2 minutes behind. Little bit of a move here by Team CSE. This is Xavier Zandio, another Spanish member of the squad who can climb pretty well. And a nice little reaction from Steindevald. Has been very surprising in this race.
He really has ridden exceptionally. This is the face of Andrei Kashaykin. He's looking at trying to ride himself back onto the podium. Had a very nasty day yesterday, lost himself around about 2 minutes. But today he's trying to pull himself back, and I think they may well be trying to set something up for their big man, Alexander Vinokourov. He's riding a superb tempo. Look how quickly he's turning over those legs. A very high cadence, got a very low gear in there as well. That's an indication that the climb is fairly steep at 12%.
Good steady riding, but this I think is a move with a deeper meaning here, because they know they'll have to react to Andrei Kashaykin sooner or later. And it looks to me as though there's a lot of work to be done on this long climb, and then after that, remember, we race down. Tomorrow's the big finish. Tommy Danielson here, now feeling as though he's settled right into this Tour of Spain. He was terribly upset with his bad ride on stage 5, but he's come good every day since.
Well, I don't know where Tommy Danielson came from, but all of a sudden it looks to me as if Tommy Danielson is actually riding into the lead on this stage.
Well, we never saw the pass, but he is the first rider, because that's the race director's car in front there, and Danielson has got himself the race lead near here now as we race up towards the top of the mountain.
Well, it's a nice move by Tommy D. I never saw this attack coming at all, but he's decided now that he wants to try and go it alone towards the finish. It's a long, tough call, though, I have to say. This is Gomez Marchante. He's 10 seconds ahead of the group Alejandro Valverde, and just in front of him you could quickly get a glimpse there of Andrei Kashaykin.
Yes, and that's the one they want back as far as the chase is concerned, or at least particularly as far as Valverde is concerned, because he wants to see those Astana riders where he can actually see them. Otherwise there'll be a chance of a counter-attack coming from Vinokourov. There's Kashaykin just checking on any gains he's making over the right-hand side of the road. Same for Gomez. I'm just wondering what they're looking at here, because as far as I know, the other riders are still together. There they are.
Just having a look down this dark blue jersey. I think that's one of the riders from Discovery Channel. It is. It's Steindevald. He's being followed there by the overall leader, Valverde, still looking very comfortable. Got his jersey unzipped to cool himself down a fraction. There you can see behind him Alexander Vinokourov, just happy to sit there and see how the race develops, and Carlos Sastre. All of the top men, Phil, basically keeping a very close eye on each other. We've got the top 4 men in the overall classification here.
And this was an earlier move. This is part of the original breakaway here, because this is Eric Leblacher, the Frenchman, who's now coming back to the fold as they all get picked up after the day's attack, and also Gomez Marchante still trying to pull something special out of this race.
Certainly is. He's a very aggressive rider. He certainly wants to get some more glory out of the event, but Team Sonia Duval, one of the smaller teams on the Pro Tour circuit, still always seem to come up with some great performances. They rode a very good Giro d'Italia. In fact, I've heard it said that their team leader, Gilberto Simoni, is going to try his hand at mountain bike racing during the winter season.
Well, he's light enough now. Is this a chance to turn the screw a bit tighter here by Vinokourov? Quickly onto him, Carlos Sastre, but there's next... Oh, it's Valverde who's doing the damage now, and the tables are being turned here. The golden jersey decided he had enough of these attacks coming from Astana, and he's trying one for himself.
Well, he now knows it's very dangerous to try and play this game of poker. He doesn't want to give too much freedom to Andrei Kashaykin, so he's decided himself to try and pull it all back before we get to the summit of this climb, and then I think some sort of normality will return to this race once we go on the descent down towards Granada. Valverde on the front, then followed here by Vinokourov, Carlos Sastre. Again, it's all the top boys, and the man missing out on that acceleration is Sammy Sanchez.
Well, it's nice to see Alessandro has regained a little bit of his confidence, because he'd been under pressure for a couple of days from the way that Vinokourov has been hitting him. But right now he's trying to discourage him by doing the attacking riding himself. Still a lot of work to be done here, and still a long way to climb to the finish. Valverde has not rid himself of Vinokourov at all, but he's got a good rhythm going.
He's got a good rhythm going. He doesn't have any teammates left at all, which is a bit of a surprise, because he nearly always has a man around him, but now it's a question of every man for himself. It's the law of the cycling jungle, if you like. When it comes down to decision time, you have to take responsibility yourself. Kazakhstan, you can see being well represented there on the jersey and shorts of Alexander Vinokourov. Just around the corner there is Marchante, and there is Kashaykin, and that is what Alejandro Valverde wants.
And it looks as though he's got him back under control here, or he's got tired very quickly. This is the face of Andrei Kashaykin. 2:05 back now, slipping away from the podium yesterday, replaced by his teammate and team leader. Andrei Kashaykin is the national champion, by the way, of Kazakhstan, which is the jersey he's wearing. It's slightly different to the Astana jersey, and they have the yellow sun in the back of the jersey. Gomez Marchante up behind him, might give him a little bit of a fillip and a leg up, but if they look over the shoulders, I think Valverde's virtually got these in order. I'm just wondering if he was the sacrificial lamb, and whether, if they catch him, Vinokourov will have the strength to have a little go.
Well, here's another one of the survivors of the early morning breakaway. Lars Bak was in that breakaway. He now is also coming backwards.
I'm not sure how many riders, it's unclear, are left at the front of this race, but they keep on coming back, so there must be quite a few.
Well, we do know that this man is leading the race, and how about that for a backdrop? It really is. This is the area of Spain, by the way, where a lot of the spaghetti westerns were filmed back in the 1960s, and it is a very dry part of the world, yeah.
That was the move. He waited, and now he's gone. You see, I'm sure that Kashaykin was the carrot, and it forced in the end Valverde to chase, and now he's having his dig.
Well, that's what he wanted him to do, and he wanted to see whether or not the leader, Valverde, was going to take the responsibility of chasing down his teammate. It looks as if he's managed to find the legs. He's got to nail himself back now to the man at the front there, Vinokourov. Vinokourov now is starting to look rather dangerous.
Well, I don't think there's any reaction. I don't think Sastre's got anything left in those legs to help him, and I don't know if Valverde can do any more. This might be the moment here. I don't think he's got enough road left to take the golden jersey, but he can certainly close it down. The battle on the Pandera tomorrow is going to be rather fierce. The man who's in the lead in this combination competition, that was the wrong caption, by the way. That's not Kashaykin now. This is Vinokourov, and he's in search of an even higher finish in Madrid.
You know what, I have a feeling there, Phil. Valverde is starting to recover. He's starting to come back slowly. He hasn't panicked at all. I think he's in control of this situation. As we can see here, Gomez Marchante is still in the company here of Andrei Kashaykin. Now, this is actually rather dangerous. I thought Kashaykin had been brought back. Now, if Alexander Vinokourov gets to Kashaykin, then it could be dangerous for this man.
And Sastre again having to be content to follow. He hasn't quite got the little bit extra. Vinokourov has come up to his mate. That's it, and Andri says, oh, there you are, where have you been? Right, now we've got two of them here. And Gomez Marchante is going to find himself in the middle of a crossfire. Second, fourth and fifth overall, and the first and third place riders are just behind.
Well, there won't be any help, I don't think, coming here from Carlos Sastre. Once again, he's right on the edge of the red zone, so he's leaving all of the pacemaking to the overall leader. And just to prove me wrong, he's come alongside him to give him a little bit of a hand. It's pretty windy up here. There are the cars just around the corner, so they're not too far behind.
Well, Sastre's got to use any energy he might have left right now, otherwise he's losing a podium finish as well. 14 seconds now for the three leaders. This is beginning to look like it might be the start of something big, because I thought Kashikin was getting tired, but maybe he isn't. Well, helping hand there for
Vinokourov didn't look all that good, Phil. He actually looked as if he was rocking and rolling just a little bit, and they are starting to stop the cars now, and there you can just see around the corner there the pale blue jersey of the rider from Kazakhstan and the white jersey of Vinokourov. 14 seconds is not very much, and Valverde is a very good descender. They're not far from the top of this climb here, and if they can just go over the top 15 or 20 seconds adrift, he should be able to nail it back in the first couple of corners.
Well, Valverde is trying now to get rid of Sastre with a little bit of extra effort. The crowd are shouting in his ear now, trying to get the Spanish hero to do the job properly and fight back into this, because it's the Kazakhs who are really delivering the blows just now. 139 kilometres done when they get over the top. It's still a long way to the finish, and it could be a real battle royale, one of the big pursuits indeed.
Well, it's a fairly technical descent to begin with, then after that it's a fairly flat run into the city of Granada, which is an absolutely magnificent city. And there's the move again. Alejandro Valverde says, mate, I'm going to go alone. He knows now's the time to put the acceleration in. He knows he has to close it down as quickly as possible, because this is a pretty dangerous moment for him.
Photographer Graham Watson there getting the shot of the day. Valverde trying to distance Carlos Sastre. And then it's off down the mountain at the other side. This is going to be a terrific pursuit now down to the finishing line at the bottom of the mountain. And Valverde is under pressure. He shouldn't lose the gap. He still has quite a nice lead over Vinokourov, but a day when Vinokourov once more is proving he has the strength and he's prepared to use it and try and nibble a little bit more off the overall lead.
Never scared at all to have a go, but that was a well-defined plan, I reckon, there between Kashekin and Alexander Vinokourov. They waited to put this man under pressure. They knew he had to chase down Andrei Kashekin, because he is still in 2 minutes in arrears, a danger for the overall classification. And once he'd used all of his effort, wow, didn't Alexander Vinokourov hit him hard.
And another good day too for Johan Brunel's Discovery Channel team. Tommy Danielson's gone over the top, maximum points first. Kashikin, Vinokourov, Gomez, Marchante, Valverde, Sastre in that order behind. But because Cauchioli and Egoi Martínez haven't scored, it'll mean now Martínez has the lead in the King of the Mountains for Discovery.
Well, he's just about made the junction there. I've got a funny feeling that is the golden jersey there, Phil, as we head up towards the top here with Tommy Danielson. Just going over the top. There's just a little bit of a downhill.
Made it anyway.
Just a little bit of a downhill. And it looked to me as if we just saw the junction there of the golden jersey coming back to Alexander Vinokourov, and the race referee getting out smartly, because he's expecting everybody now to come back to Tommy D.
Having seen the ascent up this mountain, I reckon this is going to be a very twisty drop, this one. Could be very skillful indeed. Tom Danielson now in a position to race for a stage winner. That should be some great consolation for his stage 5 flop. Just looking down there, Paul, I don't see him.
Well, it looked as if the two riders had almost made the junction. There you can see Kashekin and Vinokourov, followed there by Marchante Gomez.
35 seconds they get.
And just looking back a little bit, look at this. He's not far off, 42 seconds, but that 42. Is off Tommy Danielson.
And he'll have gone over in fifth, I think.
Yep.
5th place, yeah.
I'm just looking around the corner there. There's a lot of motorbikes around. I can't believe that he hasn't managed to nail back the gap. He was so close just a few moments ago.
Well, there's nothing down there right now, and he's on his own. Sastre, where is he? Because Vinokourov is going and time is gaining. Valverde, I think, is going to have to take a few chances down this mountain.
He certainly will, and he's a good sprinter. He's a fairly agile rider. I think those riders, Phil, are just around the corner here. He can't be more than 10 or 15 seconds, and I think he got a bit of a fright when he saw that motorbike.
Sure. Well, this is actually a very tortuous descent. Brake hard and lean right over here. And what a tortuous descent this is. The flags are out warning. There's the Sharpie. and Valverde's had to really slam on the anchors to get round that one. Now there they are, you're absolutely right, and he's coming back.
He's coming back, he's taking all kinds of risks going round these corners. He's full on, he's not touching his brakes. He knows that this afternoon he's got to pull himself back to those riders in front of him around the corner. Every time he gets a slightly technical corner, you see how that knee goes out? That's just to put the centre of gravity down a fraction to keep the pace nice and high. There they are. He's about 2 or 3 bike lengths away from them, but look at the speed, 75 kilometres an hour. There is Alexander Vinokourov et al.
Yes, 47 miles an hour on the way down here. Fantastic descending by Alejandro Valverde, and we're in the hot seat to see it as he now starts to rapidly close in. Look, they've looked over his shoulder. Kashigin's more or less pointed, I think, to warn Vinokourov that the yellow jersey is here. And now we're going to have a 4-man descent after Tom Danielson.
Well, I don't know if you just noticed, we kicked up to 85 kilometres an hour there in the straighter part of the course. Well, Alejandro Valverde, well done. But Vinokourov says, mate, you haven't got me yet. I'm going again.
That's amazing. That is amazing. He was warned by Kashikin and he's actually opened up a gap again. It's been a tremendous cut and thrust tour this year, and Vinokourov, despite losing that time, simply will not give up trying. He's gone again. He's
a battler. He's a real warrior. A man from Kazakhstan knows how to go out on the warpath, and that's what he's doing right here on this descent. They were all back together there as far as I was concerned. It was almost a re-junction, but not as far as Alexander Vinokourov thought, but he hasn't got that much. He's got about 100 metres, but still, Alejandro Valverde won't have any mates in this group now. They're all going to sit on him and let him chase down the man in front.
And he must have given some serious effort there on that descent. Now, how much has he got left here? Because now he's gone again, and again the reaction this time coming from Kashikin, and then Gomez Marchante. He doesn't really mind. He's taking good profit here by the infighting taking place.
Well, just around the corner there you can see Vinokourov. He's taking a lot of risks down this descent, and as we come into the corners, there's the motorbike leading him.
That's a long way.
It's about, I would say, 100 metres, which is around about 10 to 12 seconds.
That's a long way as we run down this mountain. It's been a great descent for those who like to descend quickly, and it's all being left to Valverde. He's got no friends whatsoever here. He's got no team to back him up, and he's got a lot of flat road when we get down there as well. And Kashikin is just going to sit here and make him do all of the work.
It's going to be a long chase now, and once we get to this slightly flatter part of the course, you can see they're slowing down to 78, 79 kilometres an hour from a maximum of 85 kilometres an hour, just a little bit further up there. There's no help at all now, and on this part of the course I think we will see the advantage tip over to Alexander Vinokourov, because he's a man who's got serious power.
I'll tell you what, it's a long time since we've seen a race like this. No obvious race favourite, and Valverde having to do all of the work now himself as the race leader to try and catch the man who really refuses to lie down.
Well, Alexander Vinokourov started the race off quite badly in the first week, losing himself a couple of minutes on one of the smaller climbs, I would have to say, of the Vuelta a España. But since then, Phil, in this last week of racing, he certainly has bounced back. I'm just having a quick look here. This is a little bit further back. This is one of the other riders from Astana. That was Paulinho. He's on the reserve as we go up to look at Alexander Vinokourov here. Now he's got the big gear in. Now he's cranking it up, looking up the road. He only has one rider in front of him, and there he is. That's Tommy Danielson.
Looks like he might be coming up to him as well. He had his power-up machine on the bike frame there, so I wonder what the power output is today. Pretty powerful, I would think. And I think once this mountain closes down, we're going to see an American-Kazakh tandem heading towards the finish. 1 second, 2 seconds. They've started the clock on Valverde at 5 kilometres to go. Tommy D's going to have company, and this gap is really opening up now. Alejandro Valverde is in big trouble.
Well, he hasn't got any friends, but at least Gomez Marchante has come to the front to do a fraction of the work with him. These guys have all got something to gain by pulling it all back together, because for Gomez Marchante there's still the possibility of getting himself a stage win. And Tommy D said, what is this? This is the Kazakhstan Railways coming through.
He must wonder where the rest are now, because they've got them both together. At least Tommy Danielson quick to react, but just how fast was Vinokourov going when he passed Tommy Danielson? Now the two. If Tommy can recover, that's going to be a terrific help now now for Vinokourov, because there ain't nobody back here. Gomez is trying, but the pace doesn't lift that much.
No, these guys are really basically trying to survive. We've got the clock. Oh, look at that. That's Phil, from a moment ago when they were all together, it stretched out to almost the 1 minute mark. This is a turning point.
This is enormous. If these gains continue, then it's going to be a new golden jersey after something like 8 days in gold, and I really thought that was the change for good for Valverde. He's now really under pressure. There could be seconds between them at the finish, and Valverde is fighting for his race lead now, and he's going down fighting too.
Well, he will go down fighting. He's a proud rider from Spain in Case d'Espagne. He's on the front. He's got to defend this lead, but I don't think he expected that last attack from Alexander Vinokourov. He'd done the job. He'd nailed the deficit on the climb, nailed it back again on the descent. It was all pretty much back together, but that was discounting the unbelievable tactical nous of Alexander Vinokourov, who says, mate, I'm off again.
Well, that was a demon descent by Alexander Vinokourov. Look ahead, nothing, only motorcycles in front, and this group could be getting a bit swell up a little bit in size now, and Sergio Palhinho, teammate of Vinokourov, coming back into the fray as well.
Stéphane Goubert on the back there for AG2R, the Frenchman who very often rides quite well. But look at this, Valverde completely and utterly on the defensive from a man who's completely controlled recently.
Well, this has been a terrific day. 4 kilometres to go now. 1 minute and 3 seconds into the tunnel go the leaders. And this is the, well, not the leaders, these are the chasers after the leader. We can't take you through the tunnel, I'm afraid. The cameras don't work. But as they come out the other side now, this is a dramatic pursuit here. And Tommy Danielson has got his legs back on, and he can work now with Vinokourov.
Well, for Tommy Danielson, it's also a pretty good move, because he will possibly see himself moving up in the overall classification as well. We're starting the clock again at 3 kilometres to go. Alexander Vinokourov, immediately he sees the slowing down of Tommy D. He goes straight by to whip the pace, making up once more. He is looking at a stage victory this afternoon, and he's also looking at the possibility of changing the overall lead, which is something I was not expecting on a stage like today.
Well, on this road to Granada, this is the day, really, it's supposed to have been the calm before the storm, because tomorrow is the big mountain finish on Pandera. And here we have another typical move by this Kazakh rider to try and take the golden jersey on a day they thought they would just have a little bit of a rest, heading towards it. But no, they're fighting on, and now the gap is opening, and Tommy Danielson is firing here. Because, you know, Paul, if they get down to the finish, I wonder if Vinokourov will repay him by thanking him and giving him the win.
He may well do. He needs a little bit of help, because it's a long ride from the finish of that final climb there to the finish line, so he needs Tommy Danielson to work with him. Here's a move coming by Sammy Sanchez now. He has leapt out of the pack as well.
This race doesn't know when to lie down. Everybody now is throwing their weight behind it, trying to salvage something from it. They're all climbers by definition, and here we are on a flat road watching them all try to close gaps.
Look at that gap though, 1 minute and 14 seconds, and that's to Sammy Sanchez, and I think he may well be about 10 seconds in front of Alejandro Valverde. That's 1:24, Phil. It's starting to look quite precarious now, because if I remember correctly from the results this morning, Alexander Vinokourov is looking for 1 minute and 42 seconds, and let's not forget there's a time bonus at the end.
As always in this race, and that could be the difference between wearing a golden jersey tomorrow and not. And don't you think Valverde knows that at 2 kilometres to go now? Well, they're not going to be caught, that's for sure. And is Tommy Danielson going to get another victory here for Discovery Channel, and a great stage win it would be?
It certainly would. He's gone to the front. He's giving absolutely everything. And now Vinokourov starting to look a little bit more refreshed. He's had a hard time on the climb. He was the man who set it up with his teammate further back in 3rd place on the road. Sammy Sanchez, Phil, is also riding himself high up in the overall classification with this move.
Euskaltel's had a great tour, Discovery's had a great tour. Boy, the Astana team's had a great tour, and Case d'Espagne have had a great tour, but they've always been on the defensive. And it's been the rider who's up front now who's caused all of the problems today. Well, Tom Danielson really came to this race with high thoughts, and it didn't go right in the first 5 days. Remember, he finished 7th overall in this race last year, and now he could be climbing to back up into a high finish overall. He's already up to 6th. Now, looking at the bit of a regrouping here now, chance for one or two more riders to rest, but certainly no one is helping.
Nobody's helping at all. It's all being left up to Alejandro Valverde, and it's rather strange to see. And now look at the time gap. This is at 2 kilometres to go, 1:09 for Sammy Sanchez. Let's not forget that Alexander Vinokourov is looking for 1 minute and 42 seconds. Take off 20 seconds for the win bonus, because I'm sure, well, maybe he will allow Tommy Danielson to win, because Danielson is riding exceptionally hard in assistance.
First or second, he's got it. He's got the golden jersey, and I really thought that was out of the question. And he's done it in a day when the mountains aren't anything like as steep as they are tomorrow. As he drives in through the streets of Granada here now, the man in white is becoming the man in gold. And Tommy Danielson, who's helped him and was brilliant on the last climb, will be looking for the stage win.
He certainly will be looking for the stage win. You can see now that Alexander Vinokourov is not really thinking about the stage win. He's thinking about the clock that is ticking by on the finishing line. He knows how important time is in a stage race like this. He knows when you get an opportunity, you have to grab it with both hands. He is giving his all now, and he now knows that the golden jersey, Phil, is well within his grasp, but it is going to be a fraction of seconds.
Every second has counted so far in the Vuelta, and for that reason, I think he's just allowed now Tommy Danielson to take the win, because he couldn't stop him really. He was so committed to keeping the pressure on. So it's a second place bonus for Vinokourov, a win for Tom Danielson, and another win for Team Discovery, who will continue to increase their lead and their team battle with the Astana team. Sammy Sanchez is going to get third place. There's no bonuses left for Valverde. It's all gone wrong.
It's all gone completely wrong. It looked to me as if he'd saved the day when he pulled everybody back together. He's at 1 minute, 1 kilometre to go, and the speed they're going, I would expect them to cover that, Phil, in around about 1 minute and 10 seconds. So we're looking at 1 minute and 44 seconds possibly on the line, and that would mean that even without the time bonus, Alejandro Valverde has lost the lead today.
And Sanchez steals the last available bonus, but not just the bonuses, there are timed gaps between the riders today that's going to make a big change on the overall classification. Tom Danielson will continue to close the gap as well on Valverde. Remember, it's his third win of the year for Tommy Danielson. He won a stage of the Tour. He won the Tour of Austria outright, and he got a stage in the Tour of Georgia in which he finished second. But that's for him, and this third place is for Sanchez.
That's 1:08. Let's not forget Alejandro Valverde got a 12-second time. Vinokourov got a 12-second time bonus. So if it says 1 minute and 30 seconds, it's all over for the man in gold.
Desperately close seconds will remain at the top as we go into the last big mountain stage tomorrow. It's certainly not over yet, but there is a change of leadership that is now confirmed as the riders race for the line here, and it looks as though Valverde didn't even have the strength to take part in the sprint anyway. He quickly looked at his watch. He'll know he doesn't need to go to the podium. There is a new leader yet again in the Vuelta. Alexander Vinokourov has taken something like 10 days to reverse a 2-minute deficit.
Well, I reckon it's going to be a very slim margin. Quick calculation would say at around about 8 seconds. That's not very much, and we've got a massive mountain stage tomorrow. It could all turn back again to the good for that man who rides away with his golden jersey this afternoon, because for him, he's lost it.
9 days in gold, and now will he get it back? He's certainly not out of the question, but for Tommy D, this is the biggest win of his life here, a stage win in the Vuelta, and he's going to make the most of it because his team is getting so much out of this race. Today, Egoi Martínez becomes the new leader in the King of the Mountains as well. Danielson, same time as Vinokourov, then came Sanchez, 1 minute 10, a minute 39, a massive loss on such a comparatively easy stage after what we've been through and what is to come. Valverde loses 1:39, finishes 8th, and people there completing the top 10. The GC's going to make some interesting looking. Let's have a look at Tommy Danielson first.
How happy does Tommy D look? He's been to the Vuelta a España before. He cut his teeth on this as his first grand 3-week stage race a couple of years ago, but now he's enjoying it, and now he's enjoying the fruits of having laid down the foundations. Well, I was wrong, Phil. It's 9
Only
seconds.
by a second. We'll allow that. 9 seconds. Valverde is now reversed. Can you believe the steady progress of Vinokourov? Sastre holds third. Kashikin is now in fourth, and Gomez Moshante. Tommy D is staying staying in 6th place, 6 minutes 9 seconds back. It's a long deficit, but he's had a great tour now, and a 6th place finish in Madrid will also be his best ever finish. There he is, the long, long road to getting his hands on the golden jersey, but he's done it. Alexander Vinokourov will now take this into the last huge mountain stage.
It's a big day for him tomorrow.